Every year, American households throw out roughly 30% of the food they buy. Not forget to eat, throw out, paid for, brought home, and dumped in a trash bag. Meanwhile, the average new car payment just hit $772 a month, and 1 in 5 buyers is paying over $1,000. That's a mortgage payment for a vehicle that loses a quarter of its value in 12 months. And somewhere between all of this, the typical worker is spending $3,000 a year on lunches they barely remember eating. None of it feels like a big deal. That's exactly the problem. I'm going to walk you through 10 habits I actually use. Not habits I read about. Not habits a finance guru sold me. Habits I built after years of doing the opposite and watching my money disappear into nothing. None of them are exciting. None of them will make you the most interesting person in the room. None of them will get a single like on Instagram. But combined, they have saved me more money than any side hustle, any investment tip, or any piece of financial advice I have ever received. The more boring your money management feels, the better you're probably doing. Remember that. We'll come back to it. Let's start with the one that costs most people the most money, and the one nobody wants to hear. I drive an older car. On purpose. It is the most unglamorous financial decision I make, and it is one of the most impactful. A brand new vehicle loses roughly 20% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. By the end of year 1, that depreciation hits 25 to 30%. A $48,000 SUV, nothing exotic, just a normal family vehicle, is worth $33,000 to $36,000 12 months later. You lost $15,000. Not from an accident, not from anything going wrong, just from owning it. That $15,000 is more than most Americans manage to save in an entire year. Gone. So someone at a stoplight can think you're doing well. What I actually do, I buy a 4 or 5-year-old Honda Accord or Toyota Camry for somewhere between $14,000 and $19,000. It already absorbed the brutal first-year depreciation before I ever touched it. It still has 150,000 miles of reliable life ahead. I drive it 3 to 4 years, keep up with basic maintenance, then sell it before anything major needs replacing. Often I sell for close to what I paid. The depreciation I absorb is minimal. And that $772 monthly payment, most people are locked into, I invested instead. At 8% annual returns over 15 years, that's $170,000. From one boring, unsexy decision about transportation, the journey in a paid-off 4-year-old Accord arrives at the same destination as the journey in a $50,000 truck. One person gets there building wealth. The other gets there destroying it. Your neighbors will notice you're driving something older. Your coworkers will notice. I noticed when I made the switch, felt it every time I pulled into a parking lot next to someone in something new. That discomfort is real. But discomfort in year 1 becomes a very different feeling in year 10. When you're looking at a brokerage account that has no business existing on your salary, and it does. Habit 2 is the one that embarrasses people the most when I tell them I do it. I eat the same 5 meals on rotation every single week. Pasta, a rice and protein bowl, stir fry, tacos, soup, every week, cycling through. Predictable, consistent, aggressively unsexy. And here's the thing nobody talks about with food spending. The problem isn't that most people eat out too much. The real problem is that they buy food with optimism and throw it away with guilt. The average American throws away 325 pounds of food per year. For a family of 4, that's roughly $1,500 going straight into landfill bags every year. Paid for, never eaten. The meal rotation kills that waste almost entirely. I know exactly what I need to buy. I know exactly how much gets used. Nothing sits in the back of the fridge until it turns into a science experiment. People who do this consistently spend 30 to 40% less on groceries, not because they're eating worse, but because they stopped buying food they never cook. And once a month, I do something even more boring. I stop grocery shopping entirely for a week and just use whatever's already in the house. Most households have a full week of food hiding in their pantry and freezer that never gets touched because new stuff keeps getting stacked on top of it. Forcing yourself to use it first can cut food spending another 15 to 25%. Zero lifestyle sacrifice, just less waste. I'll get to the habit that changed my relationship with money more than anything else on this list, but first, 2 more quiet money drains most people never think to question. I used to spend around $50 a month at coffee shops. Felt like nothing. A $6 latte here, a $7 cold brew there. I told myself I deserved it. It was my one small daily luxury. Then I actually ran the number. $50 a month is $600 a year. But I was spending more than that, and someone buying one specialty drink every single workday is spending $1,500 to $2,000 a year on a cup that costs less than 50 cents to make it home. The gap, roughly $1,700 a year invested at 8% over 30 years, compounds to over $200,000. $200,000 from the most boring, unsexy swap imaginable. Making your own coffee. I'm not saying never go to a coffee shop. Go when the experience matters, when you're catching up with someone, when the atmosphere is the point. But the daily transaction where you're in and out in 4 minutes and barely taste it, make that at home. A decent espresso setup pays for itself in 60 days. And honestly, once you dial in your own recipe, it's better than most of what you were paying $6 for anyway. This same logic applies to everything small you consume daily. Energy drinks, bottled water, convenience store snacks, each one feels trivial on its own. Stacked together across a year, they disappear $10,000 without a trace. Habit 4 is the one that makes me look the most ridiculous in public. I bring my own food everywhere. Lunch out costs $12 to $18 in most cities. The same meal prepped at home costs $3 to $5. Someone buying lunch out 4 days a week is spending somewhere between $2,500 and $3,500 a year on midday meals. I spend about $800. That gap, roughly $2,000 annually just from lunch. Just from packing a bag in the morning. I bring food on flights. I bring snacks on road trips. When I travel, I find the nearest grocery store on day one, stock up on breakfast items and simple things, and only eat out when the restaurant is actually worth it, not just because it's the default. A week-long trip where you eat out for every meal easily runs $500 to $800 in food alone. The same trip with a grocery run and selective dining out, $150 to $200. The difference pays for the next trip. Nobody posts about packing sandwiches for the airport. Nobody brags about eating grocery store rotisserie chicken in the hotel room. It is deeply, profoundly unsexy. And the people who do it consistently are the same people who travel more than everyone else because their trips cost less. I want to stop here for a second, because this is the part most finance videos skip entirely. A few years back, I was making decent money. Not a lot, but enough that I shouldn't have been stressed every month. Except I was. Every paycheck felt like a countdown. 2 weeks after it hit, I was watching my balance like I was waiting for a verdict. I couldn't explain where anything went. No big purchase, no emergency, no obvious mistake. The money had just dissolved. One January, I sat down and pulled up 12 months of bank statements, and there it was. Coffee shops, lunches out, random purchases I didn't remember making, groceries that rotted in my fridge, a car payment on something I'd bought because I thought I should be driving something nicer by that point in my life. I hadn't made any dramatic bad decisions. I'd made hundreds of small, invisible ones. And the cumulative result was that I had spent an entire year standing perfectly still. Same starting line. 12 months later, nothing to show for it. That January is why I built every habit I'm telling you about. Not because someone told me to, because I had seen in black and white exactly what the alternative looked like, and I was not willing to do another year of it. Habit 5 sounds obvious until you actually try it. I introduced friction back into my spending on purpose. Online shopping was specifically engineered to remove every barrier between you and your money. One-click checkout, saved card information, algorithms that surface things you didn't know you wanted 30 seconds ago. Every obstacle has been deliberately eliminated because every obstacle is an opportunity for you to change your mind. That frictionlessness is the trap. I started making a rule: non-essential purchases happen in person only. No app purchases, no saved payment info. If I want something that isn't a necessity, I have to drive somewhere, walk the aisles, physically carry it, and stand in a checkout line. Every one of those steps is a moment to ask, do I actually need this? Most of the time, the impulse doesn't survive the inconvenience. For 1 month, I deleted every shopping app from my phone and removed saved payment details from every website. The things I actually needed were still worth the trip. The things I merely wanted in a passing moment, almost all of them evaporated before I got to the store. That one boring, unsexy month broke spending patterns that had been quietly pulling $2,000 to $4,000 out of my account every year on things I couldn't even recall buying. The next two habits are the ones most people think they already understand. Almost nobody actually does them correctly, and the gap between knowing and doing is where most wealth quietly dies. Here's how most people handle money. Paycheck arrives, bills get paid, life gets lived, and whatever's left at the end of the month goes to savings. This sequence almost guarantees savings stay near zero because spending expands naturally to fill whatever money is available. When savings come last, they get squeezed out every single time. The fix is not motivational, it's mechanical. The day my paycheck hits, automatic transfers move money out before I ever see the balance. Retirement account, emergency fund, brokerage account, they run like utility bills, scheduled automatic non-negotiable. What remains after those transfers is what I have to live on. My lifestyle adapted to that smaller number. I didn't need willpower. I just needed a different system. You cannot spend money you never see. That's not a motivational quote. That's the actual mechanism. Remove the decision entirely, and saving happens by default rather than by discipline. Habit 7 is the one that requires the most ego to actually do. I stopped updating my wardrobe. A few years ago, I built a capsule of basics pieces that fit well, worked together, and would last for years. Then I stopped buying. Same general look most days. Outfit repeater. Unglamorous. The $1,800 a year the average American spends cycling through clothes that get worn twice and donated. That goes into my investment account instead. The cost per wear math makes this obvious. A $30 shirt worn twice costs $15 per wear. A $150 shirt worn 60 times costs $250 per wear. Cheap items discarded quickly are always more expensive than quality items worn repeatedly. The low price tag is just designed to hide it. The time I used to spend browsing clothing sites now goes toward things that actually move the needle. The closet full of things I'd forget I owned, gone. Replaced by less used, more costing, nothing ongoing. Now, here's the habit that I think separates people who build real wealth from high earners who are perpetually broke. And it's the most psychologically difficult one on this list. I live 2 years behind my income. Every time income increases, a raise, a promotion, a better job, the natural instinct is immediate lifestyle expansion. Nicer apartment, newer car, better restaurants. Spending rises to meet the new income almost automatically, like water finding its level. This is lifestyle creep. And it's why research has found that 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 a year report living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of those earning over $500,000 say the same. These are people earning more in a month than most Americans earn in a year with no cushion, because their expenses expanded in lockstep with their income at every single stage. My rule: when income increases, lifestyle stays put. I pretend I'm still earning what I earned 2 years ago. The entire gap between my new income and my old lifestyle goes directly to investments. My quality of life still improves, just on a delay. That delay is where the wealth gets built. In real numbers, someone earning $65,000 and living on $55,000 invests $10,000 a year. When income rises to $80,000 but lifestyle stays at $55,000, they invest $25,000 a year. Wealth accumulation more than doubles. Quality of life stays identical. The only thing that changed is they didn't upgrade anything the moment the raise came through. I watched people around me upgrade apartments and lease new cars every time they got promoted. A decade later, their incomes were significantly higher and their net worth was barely different. The raises had been spent the moment they arrived. The 2-year lag is boring. Watching others upgrade while you maintain is uncomfortable. But the position it builds creates options that no lifestyle upgrade ever will. Habit 9 is the one that works differently from every other habit on this list. Every other habit reduces what goes out. This one increases what comes in. The people who build lasting wealth almost never have a single income stream. They have 3 or more, not because they're grinding 80-hour weeks, but because at some point they monetize something they were already doing. If you're good at your job, consult on the side. If you know something deeply, teach it. If you make things, sell them. If you document your life, monetize the audience. The platforms already exist. The infrastructure is built. You just have to participate. Even 2 to 4 extra hours a week directed at something income generating can add several hundred to over $1,000 monthly. That money flows directly into everything else. Faster, debt payoff, larger contributions, bigger cushion. The compounding accelerates because more fuel is entering the system. And time spent building something productive replaces time spent on passive consumption that costs money. The substitution works in both directions. The 10th habit is the one nobody talks about. And I'd argue it's the foundation everything else sits on. I protect my attention like it's a financial asset. Because it is. Every financial mistake I've ever made started with exposure. A sponsored post that made me feel like I was missing out. An ad that hit at exactly the right moment of stress. A friend showing me something new they'd bought. The modern financial environment is not neutral. It is specifically optimized to make you feel like what you have is insufficient and that purchasing something will close the gap. Social media, streaming platforms, retail algorithms, all of it is engineered to redirect your attention towards spending. So, I unsubscribe from every retail email. I unfollow accounts that consistently make me want things I didn't want before I saw the post. I delete shopping apps. I turn off notifications from anything connected to a store. I consume content about building wealth intentionally rather than letting consumption content wash over me by default. The financial effect is concrete. The less I'm exposed to consumption cues, the less I spend on impulse. Your environment shapes your behavior more than your willpower ever will. Build an environment that defaults towards saving, and the boring path becomes the path of least resistance. Here's what all 10 of these habits actually add up to. Driving older paid-off vehicles instead of financing new ones $5,000 to $8,000 saved annually. Eating at home with a meal rotation $3,000 to $5,000. Making coffee and drinks at home $1,500 to $2,000. Bringing food instead of buying out $2,000 to $3,000. Shopping with friction instead of one click $2,000 to $4,000. Stopping the wardrobe churn roughly $1,500. Combined, these boring, unglamorous, deeply unsexy habits represent $13,000 to $24,000 in annual savings compared to what the typical American spends in these exact categories. $13,000 to $24,000. Every year, invested at 8% over 25 years, $15,000 annually becomes approximately $1.2 million. Not from a hot stock, not from crypto, not from anything that would get 2 million views online. From habits so boring, nobody would ever make a video about them if they didn't actually work. Here's the reality the highlight reel will never show you. Most Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. Most carry more credit card debt than savings. Most will work until their body forces them to stop, not by choice, but because they spent 30 years funding an appearance instead of a future. The habits that feel like deprivation in year 1 feel like options in year 10. And options, the ability to walk away from a job that's draining you to take time off, to help someone you love without checking your balance first. That is what boring money habits actually buy. Nothing on this list will go viral. Nobody films themselves making coffee at home or driving a 4-year-old Camry or eating the same 5 meals on rotation. The content that spreads is about luxury and transformation and get-rich stories that almost never happen to real people. But the math doesn't care what goes viral. The math just compounds. Unsexy works. Boring builds wealth. Pick the path that doesn't look good on social media. Your future self will not regret it.